Hello all, welcome back to Words and Pictures. Alison here with a few minutes of fun. I thought I would take some of my Spritz and Flick backgrounds, distress ink backgrounds from a few weeks back, and create some of the layered wildflower meadowgrass landscapes that I like to have on these beautiful natural colour palettes. So the inking video, which is probably still on its way to you or may already have happened. If it's already happened, I'll link it below. I like to create sort of sky and earth or some kind of impressionistic version of the sky above and the ground down below, whether that's grass or mud, so that I'm set up for using some of my favourite either Tim Holtz stamps, or I've got some of my own PaperArtsy designs here. I've got various inks, both distress and archival, and some embossing powders, because if you're layering up, you want maybe paler colours in the background, but then you might want to bring something into focus later on, and embossing powders can be really good for that. So I've got both some distress embossing glazes and some wow embossing powders, opaque ones. So I'm going to clear the decks and come back with a bit less mess around my working area so that I can focus in on creating some wildflower meadowgrass landscapes on these Spritz and Flick tags. Back in a sec. So I've cleared the decks a little bit. I've picked out a couple of tags that I think I might like to work with today. We may not get to all of them because I am trying to keep it to a few minutes of fun. And we probably won't get to a finished tag either, because there'd be other things I would do after this. So we're really talking about the next layer of the background. We've got Spritz and Flick distress inks here, and it's going to be a bit of layered stamping to create some more in the background. I don't have many wood mounted stamps, but the ones I have got are amongst my favourite stamps in the world. If we're not wood mounted, if we're using one of the beautiful stamp sets here or my PaperArtsy rubber stamps, then we're going to also need an acrylic stamping plate to mount that on, or at least that's the way I prefer to do it. So I'm going to start off over here on this, and I think I might go with a bit of Scorched timber, which is going to be a nice strongly pigmented distress ink. With this I need to be careful because of course the distress inks remain water reactive unless you emboss over the top of them. So I need to make sure I don't get this wet later, because then that ink will run. With wood mounted stamps, it does require a good pressure through down onto the paper. Simple as that already makes me happy. But I'm going to give myself a little bit more with a little extra layer. So I'm just inking up the top part of it this time because I'm not going to need the whole thing ready to go. And I'm going to angle it just slightly differently so that I get a slightly different look to it. I might send it off in this direction, I think, just down at the bottom there. There we go. So there I've got already perfectly straightforward, incredibly simple to do. Just a little double layered stamping to create that first little bit of background. Distress ink will wipe off any time, but it's a good habit to just get into, of just wiping the stamp. Let's start something fresh over here. I think I might go with a little bit of this one, which I think is it's a penny black stamp, this one, and it just gives us a nice sort of backgroundy look. So this one I think I'm going to do in Olive Archival, which is a favourite of mine. I use it a lot when I'm doing these kinds of wildflower or meadowgrass stampings, and I'm going to pop that down just to create a little environment to add one of my own stamp designs. So this one you can see is a lot more subtle because I'm going to be putting some top layers over it. And again, I'm just going to get that on both sides of the tag, maybe at a slightly different angle over here, so it doesn't look like the exact same stamp in action. I'm going to take that slightly up the side, like so. And because I'm working with my little craft mat here, it's an easy thing to get that ink back off. I think I might want one last little bit through the middle here. So that really only needs to be the tip of the stamp. Don't need to worry about inking the whole thing up. Preserve what ink I've got. And again, a little bit on the mat. Got a little spritz of water, even for archival ink, and that will come off. So this is similar to a baking sheet. It's actually an embossing mat, this one, but you can get those little baking sheets and they'll work just as well. Little habitual wipe of that. And I'm going to let that dry just a little bit. I might take the heat tool to it, because when I stamp my next layer, I don't want embossing powder to stick to that background bit. So I might as well just leave that there for now. And let's see, what do I want over here? Maybe I would like some, again, I think I want it quite gentle. So it's this is another Tim Holtz one. Very nice. And again, I think I might do it sort of in a tone on tone kind of a way. So maybe let's go grey. I do like a grey every now and then. So Hickory Smoke is going to go in the background here. And again, this is going to be a subtle stamping, but that's what I'm after at this stage. And again, with the wood mounted stamp, nice firm pressure, and I give it a little wobble without it lifting up, so that I can make sure I've got it touching everywhere. And then I think I'm going to put another of those. Again, it's background at the moment. Alter the angle slightly so it doesn't look like the exact same stamp going down. And again, a very subtle but very beautiful first layer of stamping in there. Lid onto the ink. That's another good habit to get into. So I've got my little trio so far. So far so good. And as I say, before I go into the next layer, I think I am going to take just a few seconds with the heat tool to make sure that if I choose to do some embossing in the next go, these inks are not going to be the ones that catch the embossing powder. So if the ink is still wet, even slightly, then some of the embossing powder might catch on these, and I want these fading into the background. Not this one. This one's good to go almost. I'm pretty happy with that already. But on these ones, I am going to add a couple more layers. So let's see what we've got. Oops, don't drop the heat tool. Please don't fall on the floor. Not necessary. So on this one, I think it might be as simple as there is maybe going to be some words and some wrapped twine or rusty wire around the bottom. I think I might be bringing into action possibly one of my favourite Tim Holtz stamps of all time, and just have some birds flying away across the top of this. And I think I might just have them in the same ink. Just keep it very, very simple. So this is the Scorched Timber again. What I might do is give them a little glossy coat of some Distress Embossing glaze once I've stamped them, because it'll just give them a lovely shimmer in the sky, which will give us a sensation of them catching sunlight on their glossy feathers as they go. Or, well, I kind of like it just as it is. Shame we lost the head of that one through the hole, but you know, by the time there's some twine in there, you won't even really notice. I think for now that I'm going to call that enough. It's enough, because it's making me happy exactly as it is. And this is where I love those Spritz and Flick backgrounds, because they just give you that extra bit of detail going on back there. So on here, I think what I might do is add some of my PaperArtsy flaxseed heads. They remind me of little jingle bells, so that's actually called the Bells Edition, EAB 36, released in February 2024. So for me, working now in March 2024, these are still quite new and quite exciting to play with. So I'm thinking that that's going to go, yeah, somewhere there. So here's where I need the acrylic mounting block. Just press the rubber down onto it for nice firm contact. And then what colour are we going to ink it in? I think we might be going to emboss this one. So it kind of doesn't matter what ink I ink it in. And I think the embossing powder I'm going to use is a favourite of mine. This is the Wow Earthtone Pepper. Ooh, see, now I'm saying that, I'm sort of thinking maybe, no, let's stick with what I was doing. Stick to the plan. It wasn't a plan. I made the plan just now. I don't want you to think I plan any of this in advance. This is me playing. This is me having a few minutes of fun, and you're invited along for the ride. So that one's going down there. Little flower head. I've actually ended up stamping it in hickory smoke. So you can see that that's getting a little bit lost in the background because it's quite a delicate stamp. But if I fairly rapidly, should have had some paper ready. I told you I didn't plan things in advance. Pop this onto here. Then the embossing powder goes on like so, all over where I've stamped. You can see already that's picked up more of the stamp, but the background wasn't quite dry, so I'll show you in a sec. Let's get the powder back into there before we go any further. So you can see that here it has caught some of that. It wasn't quite dry. So what I'm going to do is get myself another piece of paper and just a little brush and just get rid of some of those. I'm just brushing off the powder that's got to places where I don't want it. And it's a really easy way to just get back to just having the part you wanted. So if you have forgotten to dry your ink, or if you haven't fully succeeded in drying your ink, all is not lost. It's going to be a little messy, it's going to be not quite perfect, but those that know me will know I have no problem with that. In a minute I might put the rest of that powder in too. But for now, I'm going to dry this and let you see the magic that happens as this embossing powder heats. I'm not using an embossing gun. This is the Ranger heat gun, and as you can see, it's done good service. It's one I got secondhand in the first place, so I don't know how many years it had already done, but it's done me another at least 10 years of playtime. So that is just starting to melt those tiny little granules of plastic, which means they'll be permanent. They're not going anywhere. And they also give just a little more definition to that image, bringing it into the foreground. And the other delight for me about using embossing powder is you get a little bit of texture, and if you've got a nice glossy embossing powder, you have that lovely sensation of it just catching the light with a sort of now you see it, now you don't effect. And again with that, I think I'm going to leave that for now. Let it sit for me. Or maybe, do I want another little bit down here? Do I want a little crisscrossing bit? No, I'm going to leave it for now. We'll come back to these another day and finish them off in a few more minutes of fun later on. Last one here. What stamp am I going to use with that? I think I might be going to use both my new Umbellifers, new in March 2024. So this is EAB 38 Umbellifer edition. You get a background panel, bits of ephemera, which we might also use finishing off these tags. But you get the stem of the Umbellifer, which is just any of these flowers which have multiple stalks creating flower heads. You also get a view of the same plant from above on each of these sets. So same with the bells, the stem and the same plant from above. Those are great for little texture additions. So I think I'm going to use both that and, see, yeah, I was more influenced than I knew by some of Tim Holtz's beautiful wildflower silhouettes. I love this one here, these beautiful grasses. So I think I'm going to add them in as an additional detail and have these growing out in this direction. So that's going to go somewhere up there. Yep, that'll be lovely. And I think in terms of layering, I might do this very simply with the Rustic Wilderness, which is another really beautifully, strongly pigmented distress ink, rich, dark green, fabulous colour. and it will already give that Umbellifer more presence than those background ones in the hickory smoke. Oops. Yeah, there's a thing not to do if you can avoid it. Beautiful demonstration of how not to stamp. I dropped it again, but actually in terms of meadow flowers, that's quite a nice effect. That profusion, that abundance of the flowers in the meadow. And I'm going to have another one coming up the side here. The stems are not going to quite reach the bottom, but what I'll be able to do, if I'm very clever about it, is just ink up here the base of my stamp and line it up-ish to create the stems carrying on down. Could do with just a little bit there as well for the other ones. There we are. So that gives us a real impression of depth on that tag, that lovely sense of the flowers in the background. Even the one that I dropped, I'm actually rather liking, quite enjoying that. And then I think what I might do is pop just a few of these down at the bottom. And I think I don't want them in the full-on rustic wilderness. I think what I might like is to have those softly in the olive archival again. It's got a little less presence than the rustic wilderness, but a little more presence than the hickory smoke down in the background. And it's just giving us some extra grassy stems, some extra detail down below. And that's creating that beautiful illusion of depth to the whole tag. So that seems like a few minutes of fun for one day. As I say, I highly doubt that I'm finished with these tags. I'll be coming back to add some words. I am words and pictures after all. And I'll be adding perhaps painting these bells in here. There might be some twine to be wrapped round. There might be some quotes. Plenty of those in my stamp sets as well. And we'll see how these tags want to finish themselves off later. But that's the next layer, just to take a few minutes of fun and add some meadow grass stamping, one of my favourite things to do. Thanks so much for dropping in today. I hope you've enjoyed this few minutes of fun. I certainly have. I always enjoy playing with meadow grasses. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, that would be wonderful. Leave a comment down below or simply hit the thumbs up button. All of that helps me to grow the channel and invite more people along to join us for a few minutes of fun in the future. Thanks so much. Happy crafting.